Technically, everyone watching this video has more money than me and their bank account.
MrBeast literally built his entire empire on one single concept: giving money away. Massive giveaways, jaw-dropping stunts, millions of dollars handed out on camera like it's absolutely nothing. That's the brand. That's the whole image. The internet's most generous creator, the guy who changes lives with every upload.
If you hate MrBeast, what I'm about to show you will seem unethical and like a clear abuse of fame for money.
But what happens when the person who made his name handing out stacks of cash has apparently been just as focused on quietly pocketing it behind the scenes? Because that's exactly what the receipts are showing, and the picture they paint is not pretty at all. We're not talking about one sketchy crypto move that could get brushed off either. We're talking about 3 completely separate incidents. Different tokens, different timelines, different projects, and every single one follows the exact same playbook. The person who pieced this together isn't some bitter nobody with a grudge. It's Coffeezilla, the same investigator YouTube themselves have relied on to expose real financial scams on their own platform. When that guy starts pulling threads and connecting dots, you stop what you're doing and pay attention.
MrBeast sold about $200,000 worth of these tokens.
So let's break this down from the very beginning. Rewind to 2021. The NFT craze is at an all-time high. People from every corner of the internet are throwing real, hard-earned money at pixelated cartoon apes and genuinely believing they're investing in the future. It was absolutely wild. Every influencer and celebrity with a platform was talking about NFTs like they were the second coming. And right in the thick of that chaos, MrBeast starts publicly talking up a collection called CryptoPunks, telling his massive audience, hundreds of millions of eyeballs across every platform, that these things are seriously worth checking out. On the surface, that's just a celebrity riding the same wave everyone else was riding. No big deal at all. But here's where it gets messy. According to Coffeezilla's deep dive investigation, around that same time, MrBeast also quietly dropped $100,000 into the pre-sale of a connected crypto project called Super, back when barely anyone outside a tight inner circle even knew it existed. The general public had zero access to this project at that point, which is exactly what makes this suspicious right out the gate. Shortly after that early buy-in, millions of super tokens showed up in his wallet. Not because of some brilliant strategy or genius move, but because that's textbook how a pump works. You get in dirt cheap before anyone's paying attention, attach a massive name to draw a crowd, let the hype inflate the price, and cash out while everybody else is still buying in, thinking they found something early. That's the oldest trick in the book, and it keeps working because regular people trust the big names without ever questioning what's actually happening behind the curtain. And the timing is what seals this whole deal. MrBeast tweeted one single word, super, in response to a hype post on May 12th. Just one word. That's all it took.
Quote, "These investments were made and managed in consultation with industry experts to ensure full compliance with all appropriate rules and regulations. The wallet is not owned or managed by Jimmy, but rather a fund led by respected and sophisticated managers. The fund closely evaluated and scrutinized hundreds and hundreds of opportunities, which resulted in several investments. Some have been more successful, others less, and others still works in progress. The fund's investment strategies apply the same rigorous standards as many other experienced investors in the field."
But within 72 hours of that tweet hitting millions of eyeballs, $200,000 worth of those exact tokens had already been sold off. Now stop and think about that sequence for a second. A single tweet goes out to an audience of millions. The price spikes as people rush to buy in, and then the tokens get dumped almost immediately after. You can call that a coincidence if you want, but let's keep it 100. That is exactly what a pump and dump looks like when you strip away the PR spin. Pretending otherwise is Olympic-level mental gymnastics. So once this started gaining serious traction and people started asking real questions, MrBeast's team had to say something. And the explanation they went with leaned extremely hard on one very convenient excuse. One that would end up getting recycled every single time a new situation popped up. Stripped of all the corporate talk, their statement boils down to this. It wasn't Jimmy, it was a fund run by unnamed sophisticated managers. That's the whole defense. These so-called sophisticated managers just happened to make the exact same moves Jimmy would have made, at the exact same times, pulling in the exact same profits.
Because regardless of your intentions, selling tokens within a month of your 2-month charity auction is wrong, stupid, and unethical? Yes, I think that as well.
Calling a crypto fund manager sophisticated is generous, considering how much of the crypto space runs on pure chaos, wild speculation, and hype with barely any real oversight. If that explanation was actually legit, you'd expect the team to clear the air with a few basic answers, right? That's what people with clean hands do. They answer questions directly and move on. Instead, when Coffeezilla tried to get a direct response, Complete radio silence. Not for days, not for weeks, for months on end. If you've got nothing to hide, going completely ghost on the one person asking reasonable questions is a bizarre strategy. It's the kind of non-answer that looks 10 times more suspicious than just addressing the question ever would have been.
In fact, the only reason we know MrBeast was in the presale is that there were several articles about it bragging about that fact.
Now here's where another layer gets stacked on. The wallet behind these transactions wasn't even confirmed as MrBeast's personal wallet. It traces back to an account under the name Wu-Tang Clan, linked to a crypto figure named Jason Williams, a guy who's tweeted about NFTs, worn the merch, and connected his own brand to that same wallet address. Another perfectly placed layer of distance, right where you'd need one if you wanted to keep things looking clean. Except MrBeast blew that cover wide open himself. In an old podcast appearance still floating around the internet, he casually talked about buying CryptoPunks alongside Logan Paul after Gary Vee reportedly got them on a late-night call, hyping the whole thing, telling them CryptoPunks were going to be the next Facebook. That is not the story of a guy who's completely hands-off while some independent fund makes decisions without him in the room. That's someone who was personally there for the pitch, personally made the decision to buy in with real money, and then personally talked about the whole experience afterward on a podcast with his own name attached to it. You cannot play both sides of that fence, but he absolutely tried to. But the single worst example out of all three, it's not even the first deal. It's what happened with a token called EARN, directly tied to Team C's, MrBeast's own ocean cleanup initiative.
Once again, MrBeast's name was used to promote this instead of the fund itself. And internally to investors, I have to say, this built up a lot of excitement, not just because MrBeast is a huge name, but because XCAD had what's called creator tokens. So the idea to some investors is that, well, if they're investing MrBeast and KSI, what if they were ever to launch creator tokens? That would be massive.
This is supposed to be the wholesome, feel-good side of the brand. The part that makes regular, everyday people feel genuinely positive about supporting this creator and his mission. That's exactly what makes this particular situation hit so much harder than the other two. The charity auction connected to Team C's was supposed to run for 2 full months, giving supporters time to participate and contribute. But right in the middle of that window, MrBeast's fund allegedly dumped $2 million worth of EARN tokens, tanking the value and leaving every single person who bought in holding coins worth next to nothing. Think about that for a second. Selling off the exact token tied to your own charity event during the charity event you personally organized. That's not just a bad look. That's pulling the rug from under people who genuinely believed their money was going toward cleaning up the ocean, not funding somebody else's quiet exit. And sitting right underneath that is an extra layer of irony, almost too perfect to be real. One of Team C's own official sponsors was Coca-Cola, a company that consistently shows up near the top of global plastic polluter lists year after year. So let that sink in for a moment. You've got an ocean cleanup charity sponsored by one of the biggest plastic polluters on the planet getting dumped on at the exact peak of public excitement. You genuinely could not script this any better. Then there's the third one, XCAD. This project was built around creator-specific tokens tied to massive names like MrBeast and KSI. The pitch had investors genuinely excited, not just because of who was attached, but because of what it could become if it actually worked. The idea that 2 of the biggest creators on YouTube might one day launch their own personal tradable tokens was enough to pull serious money into the project fast. People were genuinely hyped about the potential of this thing, and that excitement is exactly what makes what happened next even worse. And right on schedule, MrBeast's fund allegedly started flipping XCAD tokens shortly after launch, despite public promises to hold long-term and support the project's growth.
No one ever believes anything I say. So, I mean, because they're like, you're a billionaire. I'm like, that's net worth. I have negative money right now. I'm borrowing money. That's how little money I have. Technically, everyone watching this video has more money than me in their bank account if you subtract the equity value of my company, which doesn't buy me McDonald's in the morning or whatever.
XCAD's own founder personally reached out and warned that this pattern of dumping tokens was going to wreck MrBeast's reputation if it kept going. The fund's response based on what actually happened. They kept selling anyway. Reputation warning, public trust, fan loyalty, none of it mattered enough to pump the brakes. So line all 3 up. Super, EARN, XCAD. Different tokens, different projects, completely different timelines, but every single one takes the exact same shape once you step back and look at the full picture. Use MrBeast's name and massive reach to generate hype, let the value climb on the back of public trust, quietly sell before the buzz fades, and leave everybody else holding whatever's left when the dust settles. Once is maybe an accident, twice is definitely suspicious, 3 times following the exact same blueprint, that's a pattern. And it's getting harder and harder to ignore no matter how many PR statements drop. And the part that makes this nearly impossible to defend, MrBeast does not need the money. He's tried playing it off before like he's somehow barely getting by, but absolutely nobody with a working brain is buying that. We can all see the production budgets, the businesses, the lifestyle. This is someone sitting on one of the largest platforms and fortunes on the entire internet, already set for multiple lifetimes, apparently still willing to squeeze extra profit out of fans who trusted his name enough to put their own real, hard-earned savings on the line.
If you love MrBeast, there will be an explanation at every turn and a scapegoat. But if you hate MrBeast, what I'm about to show you will seem unethical and like a clear abuse of fame for money.
To Coffeezilla's credit, he doesn't frame any of this as a simple black and white villain story. And honestly, that's probably the most accurate and fair take on the whole situation. If you ride with MrBeast, there's an explanation and a convenient scapegoat at every single turn. If you don't, this is exactly what it looks like. Massive influence used as leverage to extract real money from trusting fans on 3 separate occasions. But here's the core issue underneath every one of these deals that nobody can argue with. When you carry as much influence as MrBeast does, your name alone has the power to move actual financial markets, whether you're personally clicking the sell button or some unnamed fund is doing it on your behalf. Regular everyday fans invest because they trust him specifically and personally, not some faceless fund manager they've never heard of and couldn't name if their life depended on it. That kind of influence carries real, serious responsibility, or at the absolute minimum, the obligation to answer a direct question instead of disappearing for months every time things get uncomfortable. None of this ever had to happen. Real transparency from day one, honest communication when questions came up, or simply staying away from one of the most unregulated corners of the internet, and this whole controversy never exists. Instead, there are ghosted questions, one recycled excuse used across 3 separate situations, and a growing list of fans left holding tokens worth basically nothing at the end of it all. So here's the real question. Across 3 separate deals, all following the exact same blueprint, is this genuinely just bad judgment calls from people MrBeast trusted to handle his finances? Or is "it was my fund, not me" simply the most convenient line in all of crypto, for a fortune that somehow just keeps growing no matter what happens? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.